We all know about Gagne's 9 events, right? The first thing you want to do is gain the attention of your audience. And what I appreciate doing with e-learning courses, especially if it's asynchronous, is basing it around a scenario and looking specifically at a worst case scenario. So if you take your objectives of this is the behavior or the degree or the condition that you want to see from your learners, and you flip it. So a good example, I did a course that was about an active shooter. And so the worst case scenario, obviously, is someone attacking you in your office space. And so we created a simulation where the audience is watching someone attack in an office space. And so it was a simulated environment. And then we applied relevant recent stories of those things happening. And right there, you've got someone's attention, right? They're feeling it in their chest that someone could potentially attack them. So they need to pay attention to what's being presented in the course. And then from there, you go into your objectives. And I believe in following the what's in it for me method, or with them, as it's called. And instead of traditionally using the types of phrase, upon completion of this course, the learner shall be able to do X. Because you're in an online space, you want to make it more engaging. And one way that you can do that is by explaining clearly with active voice what is important for me as a learner, especially if the course is 20 or 30 minutes long and has 10 to 15 modules that I have to sit and click through. I want to know, is this going to make me smarter, better, faster, stronger? Right? So being able to explain clearly and in active voice, which is much better for online learning comprehension, in my opinion. When you can use that kind of language, you're really grabbing your learners and making it clear that this course that you're going to sit through is going to be valuable for you and your time because of X. And then after that, you want to use recall, where you're explicitly applying what the learner already knows to the content that you're going to be presenting. And that's why you see a lot of successful e-learning courses that are scenario-based. One of the biggest gaps that people fall into, or a trap, I would say, of e-learning, is they tend to create courses that are all about memorization and not application or understanding or comprehension, excuse me. And so the problem that we have is if you're doing death by PowerPoint in an online learning space, your retention of your learners is going to drop dramatically. And as instructional designers, that's something we have to be cognizant of, not only through the design, but the implementation and the evaluation. So when you think about recall, you want to use scenarios that ground the realism of the content. So thinking through, what your learners' experiences are prior to taking the course is really valuable. So that's where the audience analysis comes in. And so as you're going through and applying the ADDIE model to your course design, you want to really get a sense of your audience's skill level. If it's something related to technology, thinking through what are some general examples that will apply directly to my audience in terms of how they use this technology or a similar technology. And so having that recall will be really valuable as you're creating the interactivity, as you're creating the knowledge checks, as you're creating the various content that you're presenting. So those are some things that you can think through. And then, in my opinion, Steps 4 through 9, or the events 4 through 9, presenting content, providing learner guidance, eliciting performance, providing feedback, and assessing performance, and enhancing retention and transfer. Those are things that all really come together in the bulk of your content and your interactivity. So, as you're presenting the content, which is the fourth event, you want to wrap up events 5 through 9 in that. So, for example, if we were to do, let's say, a demo of of how to complete a task. So, for example, when I was working for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, I had to create a lot of scenario based exercises where not only did I have to have a tell, show, and try scenario, right? But then I had to create some sort of way where I'm eliciting feedback and guiding the learner. So, specifically, when you're using e learning, you want to think through what kind of feedback do I want my learner to experience in this space? Do you want it to be graded? Do you want it to be ungraded? If someone clicks on the wrong part of a screen, is that something that you want to have feedback appear for? So those are the kinds of things that you're thinking through when you're providing learning guidance and eliciting performance. And you can do all of those things simultaneously with just a couple of slides in Captivate or in Storyline, which I think is really helpful. And then, depending on the type of interactivity you're using, if you want to assess the performance of your learner, that's also something you can think through with a scenario. So, the thing that I do when I'm coaching a new instructional designer and they're writing knowledge checks, that's typically an ungraded way where we can assess someone's performance. The usual response is to create a multiple choice memorization question. And I always instruct my instructional designers to steer clear from that type of questioning. And I challenge them to say, create a scenario based knowledge check question that relates to a response. So, based on the content that we're presenting, how would someone respond to X? And so, from that standpoint, you're going to get a better chance to increase your learners' retention. And so the final event, which is enhanced retention and transfer, like I said, it really can be much more impactful depending on how you are not only scaffolding your learning content, but also how you're testing your learners. And one thing that's important to keep in mind is the Ebbinghaus curve. So if you're creating a piece of e-learning content, two things that are important to remember is that someone's attention span can only be held but for so long. So typically we try to encourage modules no more than 20 minutes in length. If you can grab someone's attention and teach them something and have them apply it or practice it in an e-learning space in less than 20 minutes, the chances of the Ebbinghaus curve, which is the amount of time it takes for someone to forget a piece of knowledge, it really affects that in a positive way. But then the other thing you have to think through as you're designing your course, especially if it's an e-learning course, how timely is the content that you're presenting? Is it something that's going to need to be updated in a couple of months? Is there a government regulation that is going to change everything in 6 months or with the next administration? So being cognizant of those kinds of things also will affect how you present your information to enhance the retention and the knowledge transfer. The other thing that's important to consider as you're going through this, looking at enhancing retention and knowledge transfer, is what other courses need to be presented or resources need to be provided to support this course. A lot of times people think with e-learning, I'll just publish this course and it will clarify everything. But the reality is, a lot of times you need to consider what types of job aids can be developed and what types of resources do I also need to incorporate into this course or provide to ensure that my learners are understanding everything that's being presented. Don't just pack everything into a course with the assumption that that will be successful.